Hello everyone, it's Theme Park Avenue, I'm Eric, and Cedar Fair is quite possibly the best theme park chain when it comes to roller coasters. They have plenty of well-renowned ones, however, I'm going to be talking about ones that I think get a little too much hate or not enough respect as they deserve. Welcome to my list of the top 10 underrated Cedar Fair roller coasters. Before we begin, please subscribe to the channel for more coaster content. Now, I'd like to point out the parks I've been to. I've been to Cedar Point, Canada's Wonderland, but not on Yukon Striker, Carowinds, but no Copperhead Strike. I went to Kings Island before Mystic Timbers, and I went to Kings Dominion, and Knott's Berry Farm. I have not been on Twisted Timbers at Kings Dominion, though. And there are two types of underrated coaster in this, so I'm going to completely get out of the way. First of all, there are underrated roller coasters that are so because people hate them and I think they are good. And the other type is people think they're good, but I think they're great or elite or amazing, that kind of thing. So let's start from the bottom of the list. Number 10 is Hurler at Carowinds. This was a close call making the list because it's a good ride, and some people like it. But I see a lot of complaints, some people saying it's rough or boring. I thought it was a pretty solid ride, decent intensity and airtime. It's one of the stronger coasters at Carowinds for sure. I thought it was very, very good overall, and it deserves a bit more credit than it gets. Number 9 is Banshee at Kings Island. This also, I wasn't sure if I should include it in the list because some people really love it. Banshee gets a lot of respect, but a bunch of people say it's rough, and they say the elements are not as good as people say. I have to agree. I think it's one of the best B&Ms out there. My favorite B&M invert, in fact, and I've been on Montu and Afterburn and Raptor. I think it deserves more respect than it gets. It's really a fantastic roller coaster. I see some people don't even put it in the top 4 at Kings Island. I can't possibly begin to imagine that. Number 8, the Flying Cobras at Carowinds. As far as Vekoma boomerangs go, this is the best. Without a doubt, the best of the sit-down boomerangs. And a lot of people say it's a boomerang and therefore it's bad. I think it deserves a bit more respect than it gets. It's pretty solid. It's more intense than the others and it's much, much smoother. It's pretty fun. I really enjoyed it. It's a really solid ride overall. Number 7, Leviathan at Canada's Wonderland. Widely considered one of the weakest of B&M Gigas or even B&M Hypers, Leviathan is a really strong ride, mainly for floater airtime, but it feels like a really intense ride for me. It feels pretty long, you have massive elements that you really feel the size on. It's a really, really strong Giga. It is weaker than a couple others for sure, but I really enjoy the ride, and I think it deserves more respect, and is my favorite coaster at Canada's Wonderland. Number 6, Mighty Canadian Mindbuster, also at Canada's Wonderland. What's interesting here is that this ride is widely considered rough and jerky. I had perfectly smooth rides when I went on it. I thought it was just a fantastic wooden coaster. The way it interacts with the water park rides is really cool. It's really, really fun. I had an absolute blast every time I rode it. Airtime was solid even. I just think it's a really good wooden coaster, and it deserves a lot more respect than it gets, I think. And it's one of the strongest coasters at Canada's Wonderland for me. Number 5 is Valravn at Cedar Point. The first Cedar Point coaster on this list. Dive coasters are underrated as a whole. Vest restraints are not nearly as bad as people say. The drop is unbelievable on this one. I love the inversions. The only thing I don't like is that mid-course brake run. But I think it's a really fun ride, and dive coasters as a whole deserve more respect, and this dive coaster, Valravn, is pretty good. It's one of my favorite rides at Cedar Point, and when I see people putting Rougarou above it, I cannot possibly agree with that. I think Valravn's a really strong coaster overall. Number 4, Millennium Force at Cedar Point. This may be the most confusing for some, as it's a highly renowned coaster in a few places. You know, some people think it's really, really good. There's even a channel called Millennium Force Man, so clearly some people really, really love it. However, I hear a lot of people saying it's overrated. A lot of people say it doesn't deserve its Golden Ticket Awards, and it's forceless, and it's not very good. And the reason this ranks so high for me is While most people probably would not put this very high in, say, a top 50, it's currently my number 3. I know that sounds nuts to some people, but I really love this ride. I think it's really fun to be on, shockingly intense. I'd say this and I-305 are pretty neck and neck from my experiences. The first drop is unbelievable, it feels long, the airtime is way stronger than people say, and it just has never given me a bad ride. Always good rides on this one. I think it's really amazing, and without a doubt one of the best coasters in the world. This may be my most controversial pick, but I just think it is one of the best coasters in the world, and thus deserves much more respect and kudos than it has gotten recently. It's really not as dated as people say, as it lives up to any hype it might get, and it deserves more hype than it does get so far. Number 3 is Vortex at Carowinds. There are a few Vortexes out there, but this is my favorite. I hear a lot of people say it's one of the worst B&M stand-ups. It is the first, and I think it's really, really good. The key things that I like about it, first of all, it's perfectly smooth. The smoothest stand-up coaster I've ever been on. I hear people say it's not smooth. I don't see how that's possible given my rides, honestly. But I thought it was really smooth. I love the inversions. While it is a bit short, it is a really fun ride. And it's one of the strongest rides at Carowinds for me. I think it deserves much more respect like many of these others. And this would be the highest one on the list where people say it's not good, and I say it is good. The gap between the overall consensus and my consensus is huge, hence the high ranking. Number 2 is Gatekeeper at Cedar Point. This is the most underrated coaster at Cedar Point. I hear quite a few people saying wing coasters are not that good, with being forceless and bad restraints and things like that, but I love wing coasters and get forceful rides on Gatekeeper all the time. The first drop's really fun. The airtime moments actually really work. The only thing that doesn't work is the helix for me. But all the inversions are great, and I love the keyhole thing. It's a perfectly smooth ride, while also being pretty intense at points. I love wing coasters as a whole, and honestly, this ride is one of the best at Cedar Point. It actually is my 5th favorite in the park, and it's in my top 25 coasters I've ever been on. Out of 180 credits, that's pretty impressive. So clearly, I love Gatekeeper, and I think it's just a really underappreciated roller coaster, and it's a really strong part of Cedar Point's lineup. But number 1, perhaps my most shocking pick, is Dominator at Kings Dominion. I hear so many people say this is one of the weakest floorless coasters, one of the weaker B&Ms even. But no, this is the best B&M floorless coaster I've been on. I've been on Kraken and Batman the Dark Knight, and a handful of others, but this is the best one. It's really intense, flawless pacing, incredible inversions, perfectly smooth, is long and feels long, and I just absolutely love my ride on this. I've gotten a few, and I would say this is the most fun roller coaster at Kings Dominion. I haven't been on Twisted Timbers yet, but while I-305 is a great intense ride, this one's better if you just want to go on a roller coaster and you're not really an adrenaline junkie. There is adrenaline to be had on this one though, but it's just a really fun ride. And I think it dominates this list, pun intended. It's just a really fun ride, and I really think it's one of the best B&M floorless coasters, the best in fact, probably better than quite a few B&M inverts and other B&M models that a lot of people really like, and it's pretty close to my top 25. Even though quite a few kind of say this ride's not that great, I think it's a fantastic floorless. And that is the whole list. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Comment your thoughts down below and what you consider to be the most underrated coasters at Cedar Fair or anywhere else. Subscribe to the channel. I'll see you next time.